In this video, we're going to be talking about three different measures of central tendency, and we're going to define central tendency as the tendency of the data to cluster or center around certain values. So the three different measures that we're going to be talking about are the mean, the median, and the mode. Now the first one, the mean, we're going to find to be equal to a formula, and that formula is the sum of x sub I as I goes from 1 up to n. And then we're going to divide that sum by n. Now to walk through that formula, we have I is equal to 1, and it's going to go up by 1 until it reaches n, which is our total number of values. So in this case, n will be equal to 7, and I will go 1, and then 2, and then 3, all the way up to 7. And then when I is a given value, this x sub I is going to be equal to the corresponding value from our data. So when I is equal to 1, we have x sub 1, which is equal to 7. When I is equal to 2, we have x sub 2, which is equal to 13, and so on. And we're going to keep adding those values up as we go from I equal to 1 until I is equal to n. And then we're going to take that sum and divide it by n to give us our mean. So to do that, we first need to figure out what this sum is equal to. And the sum is just the sum of all of our different values. So we have 7 plus 13 plus 16 plus 11 plus 13 plus 18 plus 6. And if we add all those values up, we get a total of 84. So we're going to say 84. And we're just trying to calculate this formula here. And we're going to divide 84 by n, which is our total number of values. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 84 divided by 7. And if we divide 84 by 7, we get 12. So in this case, the mean for our data is the sum of all the data, which is 84, divided by the total number of data points we have, which in this case is 7. So we have 84 divided by 7, and we have a mean of 12. The second measure of central tendency that we're going to talk about is the median. And the median is just the central value if we organize our values in increasing or decreasing order. So to do that, we're just going to take our values, all of our 7 values up here, and put them in increasing order. So the lowest one we have is 6, and then we have a 7, and then an 11, and then 2 13s, a 16, and an 18. So now our central tendency here, our median value, is just the middle value. So if we look at this, we have 3 values here, and we have 3 values here. So our middle value is this 13. Now there's one caveat to this, and that is if we have an even number of values, so if we have 6 values, 8 values, or so on, we actually will line up the values in the same way, but we won't have an actual middle value. In that case, we'll just average the 2 values together, or take the mean of those 2 values. So for example, let's say that we don't have this 18 in here, and our values are just going from, we have our 6, our 7, our 11, a 13, a 13, and a 16. In that case, we're going to take our 2 middle values, in this case 11 and 13. We're going to add them together, so we get 11 plus 13 is we get 24, and we're going to divide that by 2 to get 12. And that's our median if n is an even number. The final measure of central tendency that we're going to be talking about is the mode. And the mode is probably the easiest one to conceptualize, and that's just the number that occurs most often in our data set. So if we look at our data set, we only have our 7 numbers. So in this case, we have only one number that actually repeats. We have 2 13s, so we have 13 here, and we have a 13 here. In that case, our mode is just going to be that most occurring number, so we have our mode is equal to 13. Now the last thing that we're going to talk about is just the symbols that we use to denote the various values that we've just discussed. So the two that we're going to talk about are the mean and the median. since we don't actually use the mode very often. And we have two different symbols to denote each of these, and they're based off of the type of data that we've gathered. So if we've gathered sample data, which is the data we're most likely going to be dealing with, we have one symbol to denote the values for each of these. And if we're dealing with population values, or population data, we have another symbol to denote that. So for our mean, the symbol that we're going to use to denote the mean of a sample is our x bar value. So we're going to write an x, and we're going to write a bar over the top of it, and that's going to be our sample mean. For our sample median, we just simply write an m. So if you see that both of these values are actually just standard English letters, the mean does have a bar over the top, but they're actually just English letters. For the population though, we actually use the Greek symbols to denote their values. So for the population mean, we use a symbol called mu, which looks like a U with a little extra tail on the front, and that's going to be the population mean for our data set. And the population median, we're going to use eta to denote that. And eta looks like an N that kind of like goes down as a side. And these are just the values that we're going to use to denote that throughout the rest of this course, but just so you're aware, these are how we're going to be talking about the different values. So if you see an x bar, we're talking about a sample. If you see a mu, we're talking about a population. And the same for median. If you see an m, it's the sample, and if you see this eta character, it's the population.